this week I thought I would record a video blog. And so this video blog is about how to accept and understand feedback from other people. Or you may feel it's criticism, depending on what it's about and what people say. And so this short video blog, it's called It's Not About You, and how to deal with criticism. And so part of the reason I'm doing this blog is that I've been creating an online course recently, From Competence to Confidence, which will be available in August of 2017. And this course, in one of the sections, talks about how we engage with other people and how their experience influences their opinions and their ideas, and that very often when we take things on board from another person, we're actually missing out on how subjective it can be for that person. And one of the things that influenced me in creating this video now for you is that I read a recent blog by Owen Fitzpatrick. If you don't follow Owen Fitzpatrick, I recommend you do. He writes some amazing blogs. And one of them was about feedback. And I read it at a time where I was receiving a little bit of feedback myself in relation to some things I'd put online. I had decided that I would submit some meditations to the Insight Timer. And so with that, I was subject to reviews by people who use those meditations. And it made me understand, or helped me to understand, that very often feedback can fall into a few different categories. So we can get feedback that is very constructive and very useful. And so it can help us to get better and to make positive changes. We can also get feedback that can be to do with the other person wanting to make us feel good, and that can be very positive. And then we get feedback that is to do with preference. So the feedback that is constructive and useful helps us to grow better. So for example, with me, a number of people had highlighted that some of the audio quality of my meditations wasn't ideal. And so that pushed me to improve that, to change the way that I recorded some things, to look at what types of microphones I was using, also to look at what samples I may be able to incorporate to enhance the experience for the listener. Some of the feedback was incredibly positive, was very rewarding, and that was lovely to get that back. And so it obviously was encouraging. And then some of the feedback fell into preference. So when some people give you feedback, it's often related to their subjective experience of the world. And so it's to do with preference. And if we spend our time trying to please everybody all of the time, then that makes it much more difficult for us to actually put ourselves out there to achieve anything. So in relation to my meditations, there were 3 in particular that stood out. And again, the reason they stood out was because it was very much about preference. One person posted that they preferred if there was less silence in my meditations because they prefer the reassurance of sound. And that's perfectly fine. That was a preference. Now, in this case, this person's review reflected that in the number of stars they gave me. The second person said that they would prefer if there was less talking and greater silences. Now, this person didn't actually give me less stars for that. They were aware that it was their preference. They just brought that to my attention, which is perfectly fine. The third person actually knocked off 4 stars and only gave me 1. And again, theirs was preference. They said they preferred meditations. In this case, it was a counting meditation where you counted 1 for in-breath and out-breath rather than counting in-breath and out-breath as 1. Now again, that's preference. And so if I was to take that as a personal judgment of mine and measure it according to the number of stars this person had gave me, it might inhibit me from putting myself out there to do more. But by understanding that that was to do with their preference and that I can't please everybody, it allows me then to focus more on the constructive feedback that enhances what I'm doing. And so remember, no matter whether it's preference or whether it's constructive, the person is doing it from their own experience. So they're doing it because they want to maybe feel good about themselves because they've identified a problem and they want to draw it to your attention. That can often make us feel superior or feel good about our own knowledge. Sometimes they want to give us very positive feedback because they want to feel good about themselves, because by making me feel good, in turn, they will feel good too. And sometimes people want to give the feedback because they want to point out what they don't like. And that can very often come from a place where they don't feel they're getting what they want, that they feel undervalued or they don't feel acknowledged. And so it's very important when we view feedback or when we view instructions from someone that we acknowledge it is about their subjective experience. It's not about you, it's about them. And again, how I take the feedback is about me. So if I have a low sense of self-worth, then I can allow these judgments to make me feel good or bad about myself, or I can use them as a sense of approval or a measure of my worth. And so it's very important that you understand that when somebody gives you feedback, it is useful at times, but it's also not about you. It is rewarding and it gives you approval, but it's also not about you. Or it can be to do with that person's preference and may appear as criticism, but again, it's not about you. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again soon.